to of this company called the Kwale International Sugar Company, top of this world, that they cannot adhere to. Speaker, excuse me. Mr. Speaker, in my research then I realized Bar Investment Company and the Omnicare of Mauritius, owners of this company, and further to that, of this company, go further to one Raj and Kaushik Pabari, who seem to be the owners. So if we narrow the discussion of this issue, Mr. Speaker, individuals or 3 individuals not adhering to court orders. As much as we are focusing that this petition, the issue has been addressed and should be compensated 175 million. So the issue, the court orders that has not been adhered to. So should be able to embark and ask as to why this has been adhered to. So as I
we have 4 minutes. So Senator Jendo Odhiambo.
Mr. Speaker, I speak in a special capacity. My interest in this matter, I am the sugar company. I think it's important, Mr. So I must disclose, Mr. Speaker, on record for Kwale Sugar International Company. And Mr. Speaker,
there is a point of order from.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, yes, that's what I declared.
Sorry.
I have declared.
Professor Jendo,
yes.
Just a minute. From Senator Charage, from your student.
Mr. Speaker, I raise understanding order 104. In fact, you know, Senator Kinyua is still in Kenya School of Law. Yes. Mr. Speaker, order 104. My agenda has started, but the standing order says he has just actually his interest, but the standing order is specific. Pecuniary and proprietary interest shall first declare how much are you being paid to represent. In that, Mr. Speaker, as per standing order number 104.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So, very much on the light side.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I have my interest because Kwale Sugar International Company is my client. And Mr. Speaker, more specifically, handled a case involving Rami. I also handled a case against Mkopuo, and the respondents lost the case before the Kwale High Court. So, Mr. Speaker, what the Mkopuo in court in Senate, and part of what in the petition, Mr. Speaker, sir, is subject to a lot of verification. That the question, I wish you could have some silence. The question of
Honour Senators.
Mr. Speaker.
Honour Senator Charage. Senator.
I'm not prosecuting my case.
Senior Counsel agenda, the Senator in absolute silence.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Speaker, the case of Mkopuo, Mr. Speaker, Mkopuo network against Kwale Sugar International Company for a specific parcel of land. But Mr. Speaker, what they won was that directed that former landowners or workers be given land, be allotted land of the National Land Commission and as now Kwale Sugar. I think that is a point that the Committee on Land and Mr. Speaker, when we do our cases, we will out the facts, proper facts before the court. You know. Thank you.
Senator Miraj.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika, na mimi niweze kutoa changizo zangu na walioleta maombi yao hapa yaweze kusikia. Bwana Spika, ningependa bunge ya National Lands Commission waweze kutoa maana ya watu waliozulumika kihistoria. Napozungumza hivi sasa Bwana Spika, kule Mombasa inazunguka na inahadaa wananchi wangu wa Mombasa. Mheshimiwa Spika, haiwezekani ambaye alikuwa akiitwa wakati huo wenyewe wanamuita liwali, alipewa mamlaka wa Pwani, akakabidhiwa ardhi awe Mombasa. Leo hii amechukua ardhi ile vizazi vyake. Leo hii watu wa Mombasa Spika wameambiwa watakwenda kununua ardhi ya Abu na Abu kutoka kwa watu ambao wanataka kujua, Mheshimiwa Spika, ikiwa hili jumba la Seneti ambaye hana meno ama ni jumba ambalo lina Kenya. Wakaazi wa Mombasa hawawezi kwa watu ambao wamewanyang'anya. Hata ametangaza kuwa hakuna mtu atafunjiwa nyumba. Ushuru wa Wakenya uchukuliwe upawe dhulumu wananchi wa Mombasa mashamba yao. Na kubwa kwa ile kusema kwamba sisi watu wa Mombasa ya kwamba sisi hatukudhulumiwa na ya kwamba ni nini historical injustice, tutakubali.
Senator Kenywa. Senator Okay. Under Senators, standing under 238(1), the petition of the Committee on Legal Affairs and Human Consideration. Honorable Senators, from where I sit, request this committee to expedite this process and all the petitions any other petitions pending before the committees. Kindly make sure that we close with these petitions from the members of the public, and the Senate will not clear the petitions when they are brought to this house. So also let us kindly clear all the pending petitions. Next order.
Order number pass.
Majority Linda.
Mr. Speaker, on the table of the Senate today, Wednesday, the 27th, which is one, the report of the Auditor General for the Council 2022-2023, report of the Auditor General for the year 2022-2023, Volume 2 for County report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Kilifi for the year ended 30th June 2022. General of the financial statements for the following. For 23, Lamu County Women Empowerment Fund, Storage Company Limited, Muranga County Assembly, Nyandarua Water and Sanitation Company Limited, Nyamira Mortgage Loan Scheme Fund, the Turkana County Youth and Women Empowerment Fund, Migori Car Loan and Mortgage Fund, report of the Auditor General of the Financial County Assembly Staff Loan and Mortgage Fund on the financial statements of the county revenue. Kericho. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Senator Kavi. I have two communications to make. Senator Kavi, do you want to remember where you are? Don't need to learn. Senators, we have two delegations in both the Speaker's Gallery and the Public Gallery. In the Speaker's Gallery, this afternoon, women who have been in the Senate taking an internship program. Honorable Senator, provide young people with the legislative process and to expose them to the policy and public service. Stand when called out so that they may be acknowledged in the issue. Number one, Mr. been intern in the Directorate of and Economic Committee, DSCC. Mr. Jogu Gevenji, intern DSCC. Mr. Oliver Nyango, the SEC. Ms. the same department, DSEC. Number 5, Ms. Valentine Muchiri. Ms. Rendia Kawera, intern. Mr. Alexi Mumo, intern. And Ms. Eunice, Department of Sanjeta Terms. And on my own behalf, I wish them well due in their future endeavors. I thank you. I can request to acknowledge the interns. I saw you read up. So appreciate the interns.
Thank you, Mrs. In my capacity and on behalf of the House, I want to congratulate the young people and going into the future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I have another communication. Students from Viwa constituency in Homa Bay. Senators in the public gallery, we have 15 students from Viwa in Homa Bay County. They are here on education tour at the invitation of Senator MP. Honorable Senators, in our evening and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, beautiful visit. I thank you. Under 1.5 minutes, welcome the visitors.
I want to thank you from the onset for the opportunity. The Kenyatta University Students Association, where I come from, and I want to sing our condolence as a Senate. I pass a condolence to the Kenyatta for the accident. The number of their students got, and a number of the students during that accident. We feel with you as a Senate, and keep their soul in peace. And they were students at Kenyatta University that are very progressive. I want to encourage the Senate of the interest of the counties. And there's nobody that does not come from any county. Takes care of all the interest of the counties. Here in the Senate, we equally have young Senator Matthew is here, Senator Zena, Senator Gloria, a number of them, including Senator Oginga, who is the youth leader. So in this Senate, you have people you can. I want to encourage you to keep to the hard work. I want to tell you that success, although it was never meant to be, keep on working hard. One thing I want to leave you with, 2 minutes I have, is that as you go back to your institution, know where you are coming from, where you are, and where your future is in your heart. Speaker, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
1 minute to the Senator Homa Bay County. Joan.
Mheshimiwa Spika, nashukuru kwa kunipa fursa. Jua mimi ndiye mwenye boma kama seneta wa Homa Beatrice Ogola. Tunafanya kazi vizuri naye. Vizuri chini yangu na mimi nafanya kazi vizuri juu yake. Tuko timu moja na tukiwakilisha wakazi wa Homa Bay. Ningependa niwakaribishe wanafunzi, ni wanafunzi wa chuo kikuu cha Kenyatta, na ningependa niwahimize kuambiwa pekee wasijione kama Wajaluo, sababu wakija hapa seneti, hata ingawa za kisiasa kule nje, wakati tuko hapa seneti zote 47 na sisi kisha kwamba ugatuzi unafaulu na ugatuzi unda kwa vijana wetu. Ningependa pia nifanye kazi kwa bidii na wajue uongozi sio kwa siasa. Viongozi kanisani wanaweza kuwa viongozi. Hapo sasa ndio ikaishia.
Ni kwa taaluma mbalimbali. Next order, clerk.
Notices of motion.
Senator.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Notice of motion. Mr. Speaker, I beg to give motion. Aware that Article 43(1) Kenya provides that every person has the right to a sustainable standard of health, including reproductive. Noting that in Kenya, we have 5 and referral hospitals, with Kenyatta and Teaching Hospital in Kiambu County, referral hospital in Eldoret was only ones outside Nairobi County. Capacity, medical equipment, and human. These national teaching and referral are not sufficient to absorb all seeking specialized treatment. Further, many Kenyans with critical health conditions travel in order to access specialized services and referral hospital in Eldoret or Nairobi. National teaching and referral hospitals are the Ministry of Health to establish referral hospitals in the coast Northeastern, Nyanza, and 2, fully equip the and referral hospitals with modern medical supplies and personnel, and 2, county governments to allocate more funds to respective health dockets to adequately facilitate their county level 5 and level 6 services to reduce the demand for such services from the national teaching and referral hospitals. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Next, Onda.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Onda, Senators, Senator Chelege. Let's have the statements understanding on the 53-1. We start with the Senator for Uasin County, Senator Mandago. Senator David Wakoli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. On the statement of markets in Bungoma County, Mr. Speaker, sir, I raise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations regarding the condition of markets within Bungoma County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, report on the state of key markets in Bungoma County, including but paper mills, Pan-African paper mills in Webuye. In the statement, the committee should, 1, detailed breakdown of all current employees of RA, indicating their respective designations and 2, spell out the safety guidelines in operating machinery at the factory, including the in instances of emergency. 3, report on the 3 recent incidents that where a plant operator died from being crushed, another sustained spinal cord injuries under their fingers, and 4, explain for compensating workers for work-related details on the compensation paid in response to aforementioned accidents. Thank you, Mr. Wafula Wakoli, MP, Senator Bungoma County.
Thank you. You have 2 statements as well.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Request security in Rumuruti in Lake. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1, Standing Committee on National Security on state of insecurity in the Rumuruti area of statement. The committee should, 1, provide an update into the deaths of Mrs. Tabitha Wajiro, Mr. Jeremiah Maina.
Yes, what's the point of order?
No, Mr. We are following keenly the statements of Senator on the roads and the title deeds. It's not in the order paper. Could it be?
Statements do you have? First read the ones on the order paper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to 33-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land and Environment on the status of processing of owner of Majengo and Likie villages in Nanyuki. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide an status processing of title deeds for residents of Laikipia County, Majengo and Likie villages of Nanyuki Ward, stating in the process. 2, state when the physical planning in conjunction with the National Lands Commission, the affected residents with title deeds on while ensuring the accuracy of the land ownership documents and the Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing and implementing to streamline and accelerate the issuance of to Kenyans. Another state
on loans.
And regular maintenance of Nanyuki Doldo Road. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing on Order 50, Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation, the repair and regular maintenance of the Nanyuki County. In the statement, the committee informed the Senate of the current state of Nanyuki Doldo and state any ongoing efforts for the of the said road to ensure it is of use. Further, highlighting any challenges faced in repairing or maintaining. State whether the government has engaged and maintenance works on the said road, and if and timelines for when address the poor condition of the road, and 3, implemented by the government to ensure that contractors just deliver works, goods and services as per the terms award to curb delays in service delivery. I thank you. I have another 2 statements which you have approved.
I'll first confirm you. So just have a seat for 2 minutes. Senator Ngirori Oroba.
Kindiki tukiwa hiyo statement yako iangaliwe vizuri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two statements. I will start with my request on the alleged financial improprieties, Financial Assets Authority, UFA. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53, seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget improprieties at the unclaimed financial. In the statement, the committee should, 1, the total amount of funds that have been remitted to the unclaimed authority, UFA, over the last 5 years. Investigate the discrepancies regarding amounting to 10 billion Kenya shillings accounted for, given that only 1.5 billion Kenya 11.5 billion has been accounted for. Measures the board has taken against the management. 3, establish what is the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority in 500 million Kenya shillings for services undertaken, stating the procedure of the audit firms and the role played in supervising these audits. And finally, the steps taken to determine the value of in the form of shares that are not currently listed in the exchange NSE, outlining any measures taken by the guard the shares from decreasing in value and management of shares by way of as envisioned under Section 143 of the company. That is my statement on my second statement. Yes, the request for statement on standard group amidst the financial constraints. I rise pursuant to Standing Order a statement from the Standing Committee on Labor and Social reports of delayed salaries of standard. In the statement, the committee should state the number of employees on contract and on permanent at the standard group. 2, confirm accurate employees have not been paid for the last 10 months for when these employees can expect to receive their, stating interim measures, if any, in place who may be facing financial difficulties due to the delay. State the basis for this delay and establish any plans to restructure the company, stating the measures to protect the interests of the employees in line with the. Finally, ask the company to provide regular updates towards resolving this issue and steps taken to control among the employees. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Professor Tomojenda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two statements. Is on the status realization to town status conferred to towns. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise according to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Intergovernmental Relations regarding the status of the town status conferred to towns in Kisumu County. Number 1, explain measures in place to prioritize an implementation of policies for the operation Katito, Kombewa, Ahero, and Moroni Town. 2, elucidate the status of compliance of Kisumu with the requirements of the urban areas and cities in respect of the provision of essential services in the provide a detailed budget for the running of each of the town's vision of services stipulated in the urban 11. Mr. Speaker, sir, my second statement. The second statement, Mr. Speaker, sir, is on the state of construction and maintenance of existing county roads in Kisumu County. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 15 from the Standing Committee on Roads and concerning the state of construction and maintenance of county roads in various sub-counties in Kisumu County. In the Statute 1, describe the current state of the county and outline the road network maintenance and improvement plan in Kisumu County, particularly in Seme, Kisumu Central, Kisumu East, Kisumu West, Moroni, and Nyakach sub-counties. 2, information regarding the composition of the Kisumu County road maintenance budgetary allocation since establishment. 3, provide set aside for the construction and maintenance of county roads, together with a list of status of roads that have been done program outlining the budgetary allocation and expenditure. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, sir, explain the status of county roads that are maintained by the county government of Kisumu during the financial year to 2022-2023, provided made for these works during the said period. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Mohamed Chute. Of 2 or 3 statements.
I have 3, Honorable Speaker. Thank you. On measures to address water scarcity in Corwood. Order a statement from the Standing Committee on Land Resources regarding water scarcity in Corwood of Marsabit County. The committee should, 1, state the reason why the government has not made any lasting interventions to ensure water supply to over 30,000 residents of who have been deprived of access to water for many years. Number 2, ascertain whether a feasibility study has been undertaken the viability of constructing sand dams on rivers in Corwood to address the problem in place if and to ensure residents of Corwood have throughout the year. And finally, number 4, long-term initiative and policy framework, Department of Water and Sanitation, to address not only in Corwood, but also vulnerable area across Marsabit. Going to my second statement, a request for statement on electricity in Marsabit County. Mr. Speaker, in Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee regarding electrification of Corwood in the statement, the committee should the plans by the rural electrification and renewable to connect and supply electricity in Marsabit County. 2, of any plans by the government to connect Corwood transmitting electricity from the Lake Turkana wind power, and finally, made an update on the status of connectivity project in Marsabit County, indicating the scope of works. My third statement, request for statement, Logologo Core Road in Marsabit County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1
from the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing, maintenance of the Logo Core Road in Marsabit County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, ascertain the plans, if any, devised by the comprehensive construction of the designated Logo Core Road. 2, and definitive timelines slated to be undertaken on the Logo Core, the commencement and completion. 3, outline measures put in place by to ensure all roads high quality standards, reducing the need for repairs and inconvenience to the community. Honorable Speaker.
Before we proceed with the statements, Honorable, recognize this other group of students from Nairobi County. Honorable Senators in the public gallery, 40 students from Mayan Primary School in Nairobi County, education visit in the Senate. Honorable Senators, in of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, welcome to them, and on behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. Senator Onyonka, Senator, my eyes can see you when you are walking. So, where students? County. On behalf of your friend, no, Senator Sifuna, Ayani Primary School.
Thank you.
1 minute.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I wish to teachers and students from Ayani Estate Primary School, Nairobi, is that their senator has been, who was here in the morning session this afternoon, but we welcome them so that they can be able to learn, understand the Parliament, so that even as they work, they know that the future is very bright for them, and they can also join us here. They put a lot of effort. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Less than 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And of Nairobi County, on behalf also of our Nairobi Senator, this opportunity to welcome you. Petition of the 13th Parliament. This is the upper house. It's a house with rules, the same way you have rules, the same way you have principles, and where we also are guided by rules. We have a students that is called a standing order that we adhere to. Legislators, you can also be in this space. The future is open for each. Mine is to wish you the most brightest. God bless you.
From Senator Mandago. I'm told he has delegated to Senator Milaj.
Request for statement on diversity and staffing of the Parliamentary Service Commission. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 from the Standing Committee on National Cohesion, Equal Regional Integration on Employment Opportunities and of the country's diversity in the Parliamentary Service Commission. The committee should, 1, present a report of staff serving on permanent and pensionable Parliamentary Service Commission, disaggregate information by directorates, departments and units. Information on the recruitment conducted by the to date, outlining the positions that have been applied in the selection of candidates for each position. furnish the Senate with information on demographic composition, detailing the agenda, age distribution, and employees with disabilities, and 4, outline in place to ensure ethnic balance in opportunities for women, the youth, persons with disabilities from marginalized communities within the Commission. Mandago, EGH, MP, Senator Wasingishu.
Senator Fatuma Dulo.
Mr. Speaker, I rise number 53(1) to state a Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries completion of Isiolo export abattoir. The committee should number 1 explain the reason in completing the construction of the Isiolo, which was commissioned way back in the year 2000, and provide a report on the status of the completion analysis report and any other information outlining spent so far, whether there have been any budgetary variation and source of funds. Number 2, provide contracts, if any, on whether companies and strategic partners have been of the project, whether it is a joint, how the strategic partner were identified, terms of engagement, and how much each, and which company is currently working on the project. A socio-economic cost-benefit analysis of the project of Isiolo County, neighboring counties, and the country, whether public participation was conducted on the project. Number 4, state whether there is an expert management committee on the project, explain membership and criteria used in the selection of the members. Explain how the company that is allegedly equipping the was procured and how the process of handing over investor company that is allegedly supposed of the abattoir upon completion was arrived of engagement, scope of work, and copies of contracts in the process. Number 6, explain whether there have been to the original design of the abattoir out and what necessitated these changes, and the title deed and any other information upon which the abattoir is constructed. Finally, outline whether there is an existing framework of engagement between the county government of Isiolo, noting that the project was in place, and whether to transfer the project to Isiolo County government.
Senator Bogwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise pursuant to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Health impact of trained and experienced nurses seeking for nursing services in hospitals countrywide. In the committee should 1, disclose the number of Kenyan migrants to work as nurses in the diaspora from the year 2020, and 2, outline the steps the Kenya KMTC, together with the Ministry of Health, is the intake of students who would like to pursue nursing training for Kenyan nurses in the country and abroad, and ethical considerations being taken into account when promoting with regard to potential of exacerbating the shortage in the country, thereby endangering the lives of Kenyans. 4, explain any programs in place and skills transfer from experienced nurses loopholes remaining in Kenya's healthcare system, or in place to give incentives to professionals to encourage them to stay and practice in the country as served areas. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Maruma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity, for this statement on medical for teachers in Taita Taveta County. Mr. To Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement Standing Committee on Education regarding the provision of for teachers in Taita Taveta County. In the statement, provide a list of the contracted suppliers, insurance companies, and agents contracted to offer medical cover for a list of all medical facilities that provide health care to the teachers' insurance cover in each sub-county. Contractual agreements between teacher service providers detailing the agreed upon between the said parties. 3, delay in payments that has led to this facility their services to teachers, particularly the sub-county who are currently unable to access facilities due to the non-payment of services. Disclose the amount of debt or medical facility, specifying any commission is taking to provide payment plan to these facilities and to enjoy the benefit of health care. Mr. Speaker, I would like to seek your indulgence. I have that has given from the table so that I go through it.
The speed of reading.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I'll increase my speed. Speaker is on the non-payment of allowances to the County Lands Control Board. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land Resources regarding the non-payment of Taita Taveta Board committee members. In the statement, the committee should of all members of the board, indicating when disclose the duration for which they have not received, stating reasons for the non-payment, and 3 amount owed to each individual member for the settlement of their arrears. I thank you, Mr.
Good. Here now you have 2 last statements. 2.
Speaker, Mr. To Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement on security, defense, and foreign relations in the Rumuruti area of Laikipia County. The committee should 1, provide an update investigation into the deaths of Mr. Tabitha and Mr. Jeremiah Maina, who were murdered on Friday 24 while coming from an overnight prayer meeting. The number of individuals arrested in relation to the deaths, formally charged in court, and disclose whether substance use testing was conducted to determine if the individual was the commission of the crime. 3, state implemented to combat drug and substance abuse of illicit brews in the area. 4, police patrols within Rumuruti and its environment. National Police Service, NPRs within the area. African location, Ngomongo, Kandutura, explaining whether the NPRs are local residents. 5. Explain the police service on Kenyomba as structured persons engaging in criminal activities. And 6. The Ministry of Interior and National Administration is implementing officers who have overstayed an area do not that they carry out their mandate effectively. Can I proceed with the second statement? Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 15 from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and State of Security in Laikipia County, especially Mar. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide a report on parts of Laikipia County with particular emphasis on man-made of lives and damage to property occasioned by delay officers, and state any challenges faced by the ministry. State when the State Department of Internal Security, in conjunction with the National Police, deploy police officers to Rimunga police post, which yet remains unneutralized due to lack of police officers. Elucidate the measures the Ministry of Interior national government is implementing to ensure that the residents and other parts of the county enjoy unlimited security, enable them carry out their daily socio-economic minimum disruption. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order.
Order number, the Division of Revenue Bill, National Order number 8.
If you, sorry, Senate, Standing Order 53-3. May allow. So I'm not arriving because of the time. Proceed. Next order.
Order number 8, the Division of Revenue Bill, Assembly Bills number 14 of 2024. A bill for an act of parliament, equitable division of revenue raised nationally between county governments in the 2024-25 financial connected purposes.
Next one.
Order number 9, the Senate Bills number 6 of 2023,
The majority whip on this order number 9.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Alive to the fact that we're supposed to know. We've done the usual mobilization, but attaining the target, including the not in the House, I would request that that particular business and move. I thank you.
For that, under number 9, let's go to next one.
Okay, ask members who are seeking this. The Sugar Bill, National Assembly Bills number 22, second reading.
Senators, this bill was interrupted yesterday, and the Senator Sifuna and 5 minutes So, since I cannot see him around, wishing to contribute now can key in. Senator Samson Kiprotich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to, on this, the Sugar Bill 2022, number 34 of 2022. I know it originated from the National Assembly. So in line with what we call when in 2018, a task force, Mr. Speaker, on sugar force report, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, just as a concern, have you noticed in the chambers, both sides are going off and on, or people who are concerned, and it is good that the committee is in the house. It's impeding your watch what is happening. I hope, and it has not been happening today, but several need to summon invite the supplier. Mr. Speaker, this sugar, for example, in Nandi, Mr. Speaker, sugar predominantly in and the Tindred sub-county by and large, part of Masop sub-county. We are also growing sugar, Mr. Speaker. And even, sorry, Mr. Speaker, some of us have tried our hand in sugar cane across Nandi. So Nandi is a serious misnomer and misrepresentation in this republic, in Kisumu and western part of Kenya and maybe Kwale. But Nandi and Kericho is like Chemeli, like Ibos, where sugar, Speaker, depend largely on the sugar Nandi County, Mr. Speaker, and Kericho counties. So Speaker, I was disappointed when the Agriculture Council decided to do only public participation in Kisumu County, entrenching the continued marginalization against the great people of Nandi and Kericho counties. Mr. I have expected, and in fact, even out of courtesy with the clerks, I was never invited for that meeting, Mr. Speaker. I assure the people of Nandi, all is not lost. Holding this faith in fighting for justice can no longer be marginalized, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, whenever committees move around, they should not have clubs. They should do a proper invitation. I think that is something small. That's just best. As the Vice Chair of County Public Accounts, I cannot visit Meru without informing. So, Mr. Speaker, my people are not happy in Nandi County because the perception that sugarcane is only grown in Kisumu, Kakamega, Mr. Speaker. I know, Mr. Speaker, and most of those mills, Mr. Speaker, are sustained supply that we give from Nandi County. And Mr. Speaker, as I know there are many challenges on the issue of sugarcane processing, the issue of milling, sugarcane farmers. Most farmers, sugarcane farmers, even in and other parts of the country, Mr. Speaker, we continue to get frustrated, Mr. At the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, Speaker, in as much as farmers continue to develop. I'm disappointed because also the roads that are being used, especially in Tindred sub-county and Masab sub-county, the cess, we have never seen the cess that comes from a company or number of sugar factories. Because that cess, Mr. Speaker, is supposed to maintain and ensure those roads are accessed, Mr. Speaker. Sugar cane factories are carrying sugar from factories, Mr. Speaker. That's why we saw increased tractor accidents of Kisumu in a question time, raise issue of tractor accident. We need to be careful in terms of low volume roads to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that it goes to the next, Mr. Speaker. Number 3, stakeholders search for report of 2019. I can issues have been raised and has been captured, Mr. Speaker. Of reading the committee report that was tabled yesterday. A number of amendments have been proposed by the committee. Murango, the Kirinyaga Senator, the chairperson of proposed a number of drafts of amendments. Mr. Speaker, as you are aware, just in 2022, Mr. Speaker, the country produced 700.53 metric tons. Mr. Short. And I think we can attribute this to subsidy that President William Ruto did initiate. Now in 100,000.24 metric tons, but it is even in January, December 2023, Mr. Speaker, there is a significant growth. In 2020, that was sold was 4.56 billion. That we are talking about a sector that is affecting a number of. In Kenya, Mr. Speaker, we have more than 17 sugar mills. I don't know where Senator has been included, because we have 17 mills in this. Total processing of capacity 52,700 metric tons, which is 56. Speaker, we are still doing badly because of factory maintenance. So we must invest in cane development and cane supply to Mr. Speaker, I'll make only 5 comments, then I allow my colleagues. Speaker, there is this board that has been formed, Agricultural Food Authority. We had lumped all the one organization. I'm happy that we were able to form T-Board, and now we are forming Kenya Sugar. Focus their energy only on the development of cane. So, Speaker, and even the farm inputs, the seeds, the research, the imports, so that we don't, Mr. Speaker, we don't import at the expense of our farmers, Mr. Speaker. So on functions of and also advisory services to the government, the sugar, and even we have the sugar pricing committee. Even the better price as per their tonnage. Mr. Speaker, even on the issue of factory maintenance, Mr. Speaker, we are told there is shortage of scarcity of sugar. Doing maintenance, Mr. Speaker, and therefore, Mr. Speaker, I would have expected also we have had cases where people are issue of the issue of where the way bridges are being tempered. Farmers do not get value for their cane they deliver, Mr. Speaker. So I know it has been captured so that they check, Mr. Speaker, and ensure the bridges are not tempered to the disadvantage of farmers. I have seen, for example, in Celia, Butali Sugar Company has opened a way to approach the Kaliech, or as we approach on your way to Kisumu, Mr. Speaker, there is a way bridge. I don't know, it belongs to the Speaker, and other way bridges that are used to weigh. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, on the issue of best practices, in the one at the Celia Way Bridge, whether Kenya be and checked, because I have seen they have just opened, but Mr. Speaker, whether the caps, and this will be, Speaker. Number 3, on clause number 6, Mr. Speaker, I agree on the issue of efficient road network. I can tell you in when you go to Chemelil, Chemase, and Tindre, yet says he's being paid by Chemelil, by West Sugar Factory, Mr. Speaker. We have soap. We supply cane to Butali Sugar Company. But the roads are very pathetic, Mr. Speaker. opportunity. I hope the board shall find a way of resolving this. Speaker, on the issue of Finance Act, Mr. Speaker, I know some senators have imposed a levy or levies. These are issues that finance bill in preparation of budget and KRA, tea levy, sugar levy. It is meant for and growth of farmers within the sugar industry. So there are no new implemented, Mr. Speaker. You know Article 219 on the process has provided for. The third point, Mr. Speaker, you know this is a monster, and clause number 3 continues to become a threat, Mr. Speaker, because now the SRC is not there. By setting, SRC is supposed to be. Therefore, I agree with the wording by the on the payment of on the cabinet secretary on Mr. Speaker. So that should remain only. Mr. Speaker, in clause number 19, because I ran through. Mr. Speaker, clause number 18, sorry, a person shall not conduct the business of a mill registered by the board and the premises in which the business is in accordance with the regulations. The board shall issue under this section a certificate of registration specifying. Now where we support bottom-up economic model or by Kenya Kwanza is clause number 18.3. Charge in respect of registration or certification of registration, or so which means any ordinary Kenyan, you or a billionaire or a millionaire, to be able to get the license. With what the president is posing on bottom-up economic model, startups, Mr. Speaker, you remember there was a law on startups. We need to encourage who can get a way of establishing, Mr. Speaker. And it doesn't, you know, in the past, Mr. Speaker, the issue of milling or sugar factories, Mr. Speaker, was an exclusive of some of the, Mr. Speaker, number on the issue of 19, which has brought a lot on the a miller shall not purchase. This one is zoning. Mr. Speaker, I have seen the committee report saying there is exclusive zoning. I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, because exclusive zoning, it would mean that a specific farmer mill after contractual obligation. But also we must fight Ken. At the end of the day, Mr. Speaker and my colleagues, if we do not order within the sector, you might find cane poaching becomes a order in the sector, Mr. Speaker. There will be no investor confidence. Say we allow startups within the country. They are in the sugarcane industry. We need to ensure, Mr. Speaker, we have ensuring that there is investor confidence and raw supply, so that this catchment area, and I'm happy the wording they have used now, because Kericho and Nandi and Wazingishu, are you, Mr. Speaker, even Wazingishu? But in the past, as I've said, we have been marginalized. This is our redemption, Mr. Speaker. Accountability, Mr. We farmer contract, you know, when the farmer, this will encourage confidence of factories to invest in, have contractual obligation with the farmer. So I want to assure, especially sugarcane farmers, this is not exclusive zoning. It will be determined when and approved by the board. Even it ensure that there is proper discipline with traffic zone. And be on the lookout, Mr. Speaker, and I'm happy that should you violate, so that we bring that ensure. And I have seen many people saying there is exclusive zoning. Reading of this law, and in fact, in milling, miller farm, if there is a breakdown, for example, with a factory like Chebe, supposed to take the sugar West Kenya is factoring, and the agreement, Mr. Speaker, the law has allowed you to do Kenya. What does that translate? So that the farmer does not. Because if we do not do that, Mr. Speaker, the farmer can all and large, I want to assure farmers, Mr. Speaker, that work in progress. For me, as one of the sugar, I see this as work in progress. And we can pass this along. Many farmers get proposals in Chemeli participation, and it is a progress. Mr. Speaker, on the issue, I want to urge the farmer, Mr. Speaker, to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that we can use also not only to generate energy and electricity. Energy, this is good jaggery, but I know some people, Mr. Speaker, we know there are people who use molasses and jaggery. But Mr. Speaker, we want to encourage and say that molasses only for livestock. We don't need for human in the fight against illicit breed. And I know, Speaker, they say too much sugar causes diabetes. So, Mr. Speaker, avoid so that we are not encouraging the consumption of illicit brew. Mr. Speaker, but I saw the other day, I'm told palm wine is illicit brew. I didn't know that. Nazi or palm wine is a good wine. I don't know why palm wine as an illicit brew. So undergoing initiation from where those things that we take, even in Meru and other areas, ceremonies, Mr. Speaker, of initiation, Mr. Speaker, it's legally, Mr. Speaker. Even your area where December ceremonial things, even where Senator Fika, because we must be respected. Senator Ojenda, you should know that we might come for legal representation. So, Speaker, the industrial sugar, I agree. Let us be able so that we avoid mercury and other sugar that was impounded, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to conclude. I can see I only still have 5 minutes. 5 minutes only on the sugar. You know, sugar is to us is the day they will be discussing on the issue of parts, we will not interfere because it will be a concern. On the issue of court order, Mr. Speaker, our such entry, I think the law should be followed, Mr. Speaker. By and large, Mr. Speaker, I agree, but I will be very keen if the committee will move the amendments. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of intermiller agreement, Mr. Speaker, stakeholder and market diversification, and by and large, Mr. Speaker, this law, more than sugar barons and other people who have taken advantage. And start now. When the president came to office, he talked about we can only achieve guarantee minimum returns, Mr. Speaker, because of passing such laws. And I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I had my saying yesterday that senators originated cotton bill, sugar bill, rice bill. So Senate is the biggest defender of agriculture issues. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, we will wait until amendments are coming there. I will decide whether to support or not. My position only after I've seen the amendments at the committee of the whole agenda as is smiling. I know it was mentioned before to do with sugar, but I know he was not consuming a lot of sugar because Mr. Speaker, with those, he's not a sugar daddy, it's just issues of sugar. Many remarks, I beg to defer my support until amendment.
Senator Shera. Senator Sotsi Godfrey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. My contribution to this very important bill. Mr. Speaker, from the onset, I want that I support this bill with Senator Cheregei, that this is work. Why I'm saying that, Mr. Speaker, is because I see there is an attempt some of the challenges we have in the sugar industry, but many, many other challenges which this bill touched. Mr. Speaker, in the 12th Parliament, there was an attempt sugar industry when the sugar task force that was led by Kakamega, Honorable Paranya, and Agriculture Cabinet Secretary came up with a very good report. If you read through the report, Mr. Speaker, a lot of the report, if implemented, would be able to many, many problems that we have in there. That report, Mr. To date, it has not been implemented. It's very disheartening that we are now discussing members' bill when we should be a government bill that picks that report. And that is why I that this work in progress, because a lot of other issues addressed, which if addressed will be in the sugar industry conclusive. But the most fundamental issue is just bringing back the sugar board. Merge all crops in one bill, one legislation called the AFA has not worked. And that is why we have agitation to try and have each crop. We have in this house on tea, we have passed a law on coffee, cotton, and now we are now that clearly means that arrangement of all the crops under one law has not worked. Sometimes you wonder what we should do to try and put all the crops in, because as you know, Mr. Speaker, so we will end up having so many directorates. So, Mr. Speaker, looked at the bill, and I think I have concerns. If you look at clause 29, Mr. Speaker, talking about the Sugar Research Institute, the composition of the board, they are talking a number of institutions seconding people, but we need to have clarity on the by the input supply system. The bill does supply system is. So there is an ambiguity. What is it they are referring to? Because already the so who is this input supply? I think we need clarity there, because no 29 are they making reference to the. It's important that the farmers be represented body within the sugar industry, because in the industry. Mr. Speaker, they to have one representation from universities, because already we have representation organizations who are basically experts, again going to university looking for representation, are not represented. So I think there are some ambiguity there, which I think will
be able to raise it during the committee of the whole house. The sugar development levy. There were concerns on how this money is used. There were concerns on lack of transparency. There were concerns on lack of management of this fund. Further, to propose this money will be shared. Whereas I agree, a big portion of this money should go to care activity. Mr. Speaker, can develop the key aspect. And I think the sugar industry started going down in this, lost focus on matters to do with the cane development and started focusing on other things. We are not going to generate raw materials by these factories. So the proposal to this allocation to 40%, fully agree with that proposal, because then they will be towards matters of supply, production of raw materials, which is very crucial. Taking note that last year, western part of the country closed because of raw materials, and that affected the economy. That should be put around cane development. There is a proposal still development levy that 5% and 15% to go to research and. Speaker, I think a lot needs to be put on farmers' organization. About grower companies, which most of them have died. But I think outgrower companies was a good idea to try and to enhance cane development, and so 5% in my view is too little. Enhance to 10% because 15% Kenya Sugar Research Foundation, which institution should large a portion of it should be taken to the farmers' organization to enhance in cane development and other factors. Mr. Speaker, it is proposed that towards infrastructure development through KERA. I know who are saying no to KERA. I think this money we must critically it, because KERA in this country has road authority. And they give money to members of parliament to maintain roads. The same roads are being saying they are maintaining the same roads. Mr. Speaker, I think this must be looked at, and I'm proposing that we take this money, which we can oversight as senators. Where money generated from in growing areas is taken to the national institution, which brings back the money through members of parliament. I think that is one area that members who contributed yesterday, Mr. Speaker, had an. So I think when we go to the committee, look at this matter very critically. Well, to give 15% of the sugar development levy when we have the counties in those roads, and we will be there to oversight that. There is also a proposal on pricing committee, and the price they are talking about factors to be considered in determining the price. They have talked about a number of factors, which I find being the aspect of delayed harvesting of cane is a cost to the farmers. Is harvested, the of cane, it impacts on the farmer, and that is something that should be a factor in determining. But there is one factor which has been omitted, and this factor is international pricing. We must, when we are looking at the, what are the factors pricing jurisdiction? Why is it that the cost of sugar in Brazil is lower than Kenya or in, that is an important factor for consideration pricing formula, and how to be included in the bill. Mr. Speaker, is very, because it talks about of farmers' representation of private sugar mills. How this will work, because this contradicts the company. Because I am an investor, I have come to set up a factory. You are telling me that in your factory, you as a director in that company can also have a negative effect in terms, because investors will shy investing in the sugar because of this condition that whose only contribution is to deliver cane and is paid for it has to become a shareholder, or has, I think we have a problem there, and is a contradiction Company Act, and it discourages investment. Mr. Speaker, a clause on the sugar industry inspectors. Whereas, Mr. Speaker, that the role that these people have is very important. Basically providing oversight of millers or players in the industry. But it, in the sense that then, what is the space of Kenya Sugar Board? And what is the space of inspectors? Yes, they are appointed by the Kenya Sugar Board. These people, they are not employees. People who are appointed. And these people have excessive powers, which they can misuse. More problems for the sector. So I think we need clarity who these people are. Are they direct sugar board, or there are other third parties led by the sugar board? 33 further, he says that even government sectors. Mr. Speaker, then why do we need Kenya Sugar Board? Why do we need Kenya Sugar Board? If we are creating another group of people called Kenya Sugar Industry Inspector, a substantive body called Kenya Sugar Board, we are creating contradiction there, and that has to be harmonized before we pass. Mr. Speaker, though this bill talks about importation of sugar, issuance of license will be issued, but it leaves out aspect, this aspect of sugar, where sugar to this country repackaged in Nzoia brands and sold to the market. It is quiet on this, Mr. Speaker. If list of regulations to be created by the Cabinet Secretary as one of them, Mr. Speaker, this is a problem. Senator Halwale knows the effect of this. At some point when Mumias Sugar was not crushing sugar branded in Mumias on the shelves, where was Mr. Speaker, this is a serious problem that this addressed. The Clause 63, transition of staff. Mr. Speaker, the earlier bill which by former MP for Kandui, Wamunyinyi, had a transition clause that was progressive, because it says the employee with the Kenya Sugar Board will not be transitioned. But this particular bill has ironed out that problem. The staffs who are formerly with the original and those who are with the AFA will all to the new Kenya Sugar Board with all their benefits. I think that's progressive and I fully support that. As I said when I was starting, my contribution is work in progress. There are a lot of things that need, a lot of gaps in the sugar industry that needs to be fixed. This is a start. Let's give it a. I look forward for more amendments. This has been made law, an act of parliament. With those few remarks, I want to support, and I want to request other members also to support. Who have amendments, we will bring up amendments so that those that I have made reference to are dealt with. Just remembered one thing on privatization. Privatization of our sugar company, I think, must be done very carefully. Wide consultations. It should not be rushed. It is, even if it is coming as leasing, rushed, the communities and the stakeholders be heard, and they must be heard properly, so that we don't end up selling to people who are not in sugar. They are interested in land, they are interested in quick wins, like what happened, where a company that is worth was sold for only 900 million. Whoever bought the property only keen to buy the land. Lost. And we are seeing the same. Being Mia Sugar and Zoya Sugar, we will reject, and the Honorable Halwale is our leader in that. To reject this privatization, which act for our sugar companies in Western region and without looking at the benefits that our people will get.
Mondigi Alex.
Bwana Spika, mjadala wa wakulima wa miwa huwa inatengeneza sukari. Mimi ni mwenyekiti mdogo ya kilimo. Wakati juu ya maneno hii, sisi hatukuwa kitu ya haraka, kwa sababu siku hizi serikali inaongea mambo ya pesa mfukoni. Sisi tumeenda tukaita watu wakatupatia maoni zao. Mambo ya miwa county karibu 10 zinalima miwa, na miwa hizo kaunti 12 sukari huwa inakunywa kila kona yote na kona zingine za nchi ya dunia. Tuliangalia kama ile Senator Soti amesema ya vijana, kama ni hapo wanasturi kijana wa watoto wa university, tukaona ni watoto ambaye wanajua mambo ya wizara kuwa pale wao akienda kuvunza watu, mambo ya sukari itaendelea. Mambo ni vile tuliona kama kuna mtu atakuwa anatoka nje kutengeneza kampuni yake Kenya, tukaonelea ni vizuri kwa Beri wanaweza kuondoka na waondoke na pesa. Tukaangalia tukaona ni vizuri pia ule hapa Kenya kuwe kuna watu wanaweza kuwa kwa hiyo kampuni yake. Mambo ingine tuliangalia wapandaji wa miwa, huwa miwa ni kitu muhimu. Mambo ya miwa tulikuwa nasikia serikali ya Kenya, lakini wakati huu watu wamenyanyaswa. Familia nyingi haiwezi kupeleka watu, familia nyingi haiwezi kupeleka hata watu wakigonjeka hawezi kwenda. Familia nyingi imewachwa maskini kwa sababu matembezi mambo ya kilimo ya miwa. Mambo mengi tuliangalia. Kwa miwa huwa inakaa ndio iweze kukatwa, inakaa mwaka 8. Ni kitu ya aibu sana. Kwa hizo kaunti zote kazi yao ni kulima miwa, mambo ya kupandisha usuri yao haiwezi onekana vizuri. Mambo ya maji imekuwa ni shinda. Imekuwa kwa wakati ule kama nzure kama ni zimesambaratika juu ya vile tukaonelea mambo mengi tuliangalia kuita watu tukae pamoja tupitishe. Hata nimesikia wako kama Senator wa Nandi, lakini kusema wakati tulienda kule kwa ile county karibu watu wa Nandi walikuwa pale, lakini kana mnajua mambo mara mingi huwa anakuwa labda ni kazi ya kuwalipia watu majina na kitu anja usiswa yote huwa anapinga. Senate inafaa iunge mkono mambo ya sukari. Si ati tu tulienda tukaandika mambo ile tumelete hapa wenye sukari ya kamati inaangalia mambo ya kilimo ya na watu ni wasomi, hata wenye wale wako pale na watu wa serikali. Kwa hivyo mimi nasema ni yetu ndio tuweze kuona vile tutasaidia miwa ambaye miwa inatengeneza sukari. Tukienda kamati katika Senate mambo mengi tumepitisha mambo ya ndengo, tumeangalia vizuri, tumepitisha hata mambo ya na pia saa hii mjadala tuko naye ni ya sukari ya majani. Kwa hivyo hakuna tofauti ya mkulima wa majani, kahawa na vitu zile zingine. Kwa hivyo ninataka Senate yote ikumbali maoni ya Senate ambaye ni ya tuweze kulima. Lakini tukisikia wa senator wengine wakuja ni kitu ya aibu sana. Ni bora tu wasome ndio kwa sababu iende ikawa mtu aliitwa lakini ilikuwa kwa mitandao na ndege, ilikuwa ni kitu ya aibu sana. Kwa sababu mimi na kama kuna mahali iko na shinda njia ya kilimo tutaomba tusemesane tuone pahali tutataua. Kwa hivyo mimi
before you take the mic, Senator, when the chair asked for your attention, nilikusikia ukisema wewe mdogo wa wizara wa kilimo. ama kamati ya kilimo.
Speaker.
Senator Cherargei, I want to inquire as to what your point of order was, but he has concluded on his remarks, unless, I of course did, that's why I was reprimanding him, or he has been notified by the chair. He should appreciate and take appropriate ceding the chair, but he did not do it. I warn the Honorable Senator Mundigi. Yes, Senator Cherargei.
Character has been discussed here. Did you hear Senator Mundigi? And withdraw and apologize before the answer. He said in Kiswahili at the, you know, this is not a public market or a public gets away with anything. If he says invited to that public participation, the standing table and evidence to show that there was a letter that was received at that event. You cannot just be making statements that you make in day parties by saying anaharibia majina. Mr. Speaker, have been gracious enough by saying even that time or resources to invite some of us instead of saying you know, you should just say those ones in funerals, not on the floor of the House. Mr. Speaker, I apologize and withdraws. Otherwise, he tables as per the standing order, including air tickets, the letter that came from your office inviting Senator Cherargei. I was booking an hotel, he should table air tickets, book the letter from the office or from the Agriculture Committee to show was invited, but he declined. Instead of saying Cherargei, which evidence does he have? Can he table? Mr. Speaker, he must withdraw an apology. If it goes to the answered, it will be used by somebody else.
Senator Cherargei, you have been in this house for the last. I believe that you should have things are done. Senator Cherargei has raised, and besides everything else, to the term kuharibia watu majina is out of order, and I to withdraw and apologize on that particular, not make comments beyond that on the other comments.
Mambo ya ilikuwa kila kwa mitandao kila pahali yote, na watu wa Nandi wangu ni vile akusikia vizuri, ambaye ni Senator Cherargei, na watu yake walikuwa pale na pahali ile county. Kwa hivyo kama kusikia vizuri, si kusema vile ni vimbaya, mimi nimesema, si kusema hivyo. Ile kitu ingine ilifanya tu atakuwa na pesa hata
You withdraw and apologize on that particular comment. Opportunity to explain beyond what you had said. Senator Mundigi, kindly, I'm giving you the last warning. Apologize and withdraw. I'll rule you out of order. For the last time, and withdraw.
Nimesema nimeomba msamaha na kuondoa.
Senator Halwa.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, if there that this House should do, just pass this bill. even if there are a million amendments that this bill is an admission of how in 2013 somebody came, not an amendment bill, in 2013 for the establishment of the Agricultural and Food Authority. And it passed. And it killed the... Mr. Speaker, we, with many members, especially Senator Vihiga, he appears to appreciate that there are gaps, but has passed this bill. Why? Mr. Speaker, we are re-establishing the period. Once you that is the beginning of recovery. You were busy in your law firm at that time, or probably at what happened is that some treasury mandarins started salivating the money that was in the account of Kenya Sugar Board. They looked at Kenya Sugar Board, billions of shillings. Board, negative. And they wanted to sweep the money, and they did, and they decided. In the process, they crippled 25% of Kenyans' population depends on this industry. Arithmetically, at the current population of 55 million Kenyans, to 14 were adversely affected. With that, 200,000 small scale changed. The amount of poverty has visited in the sugar belt cannot be described. You go to Shivale market, the once vibrant economy. You go to Kahunga in Mumias, down. You go to have closed down. Mumias is the same, just because of the failure of this parliament. Never failed. I therefore appeal to colleagues. You listen carefully to the contributions from senators from, and these are 12 counties across up to the border with. Mr. Speaker, as I thank the chair for coming to Kakamega, I want Nandi, who is my neighbor, to this committee. They did an excellent them. I was in their meeting. They never lobbied, and farming is very important. I was. They didn't even have enough money to go 7-star hotels outside Kakamega, but they lived on. I'm proud of this committee. This bill, in its first share, to the sticking issue of zoning. Zoning is a very brick. If not managed properly, it can be a. I therefore want to support that we go by the proposals of the task force. During the third stage, I would like to appeal to the adopt some of our proposals so that they become the proposals for to give it the weight that it would deserve. And further, because if you don't do it, zoning, which is supposed to kill can also enslave farmers in that zone, in the sense that passed through legislation to a factory in your zone, whether it pays you or not, whether it pays you timelessly or harvest on time or not. And this is why we polish it. Mr. Speaker, the issue of zoning should also be polished so that the issue of way bridges must be addressed. We must make it an offense punishable under this act. Miller to set up a way bridge that the miller does not belong to. You'll find, you go to Western Mississippi, we have wide load, long trucks that carry harvest. This law, we want to you, so that should this mailer to haul cane long distances, a penalty as they cross from county. Mr. Speaker, of poaching of cane is the reason why I would like to support this bill, where it says should enjoy monopoly. His investment is more than 30% of the total harvested in this country. Mr. Speaker, it is because of this greed of that you find up poaching cane from end to end. For purposes of enforcement, police under this act must be authorized poachers of cane from the heartland of cane production, the county of Kakamega, of Kisumu, and the county of Bungoma. We know. Yes, and county, you know, so when I say it as a big brother. The Speaker, this law is to speak to harvesting of cane. Why you had the Center of Vihiga speak to the of factories that was there last year is because, Mr. Speaker, were engaged of premature cane. Act, we must make sure that harvest premature cane is, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, we are speaking to pricing. Cane pricing is that it should every 3 months. You cannot do that. Pricing must be reviewed because sugar fluctuates on the national, on the regional, on the continental, and in the international market. So that we don't lose out. Personally, I know what I'm talking about. I'm a farmer. I grow cane in Kakamega. I supply to West Kenya. And it is usually very annoying. This week, you supply, we have not had reviews. You see now a better price. I therefore want to plead with you consider reducing from 3 months 1 month. There is an animal in this country under the total and absolute control of the nation called importation of sugar. Whereas on the one hand is a necessity, but is killing our farmers. Mr. Speaker, how? An imaginary sugar deficit is declared. Then cheap import market, and it denies the local to enjoy a better price. I want to encourage the committee again at third reading reckless behavior. We must tie down the that any time of a deficit is made and the market for import sugar is opened, farmers must also enjoy and that importation. How? 100% of imported sugar out into the market and 50% for private players is given outgrower institutions. Outgrowers company, Moko, Buko, West Kenya outgrower company, Sony Sugar outgrower company. The bottom line, the benefit of importation will be enjoyed by and also the local producers shared prosperity as envisioned and spirit of the Constitution of 10. Mr. Speaker, and I'll be specific later on, we are speaking to the issue of cess. A member and took it very lightly. He thought money was where the member was saying it was being given to members of parliament. In this act, the money, it is 4 of roads in the catchment, which is exactly what cess is supposed to do. Bill is well crafted to that extent. It is not by accident. The mover of this bill in the National Assembly is the Honorable for Nabaholo in Kakamega, and in this House, Senator for Bungoma. It is because and we know where it pinches. Mr. Speaker, if we fix our sugar industry, our own source, because, Mr. Speaker, Mumia Sugar Company potential of a turnover of 24 billion. Butali Sugar Company, billion. And West Kenya Sugar Company, 14 billion. Turnover automatically is going to shoot up. This was the original of devolution. Economies of counties so that grow their own source revenue. I was in Kakamega, Mr. Speaker, last week. I said it is really going to be difficult with to unlock economies. There's nothing inspiring about the sugar industry of Kakamega. Mr. Speaker, allow me to... I can see my time is flying away. I'll not speak to too many clauses. To clause 38. Clause 38 is on sugar development levy. Clause, Mr. Chairman of the committee, please, you cannot succeed in the sugar farmer and without the miller. The money for sugar development levy, clause 6A, instead of giving 15% to the and 5% to the farmers, so that the miller gets 10%, farmer gets 10%. It is as simple. If the farmer gets discouraged, the miller cannot have. If the miller gets discouraged, the farmer will. Let us give it the seriousness that it deserves. The final clause that I want to speak to, Mr. Speaker, not the final clause, the second, is clause number 58. It says the main objective shall be number 3, number C, ensure associated cane processing formula. The backbone of what I was talking about. If you don't adhere to it and you allow, they say because they have the money to influence meetings, end up being shortchanged. And finally, Mr. Speaker, which is speaking to representation, a grower in the private milling company. Senator Osoti missed it by a kilometer. The private miller are allowed to sit as directors on his own. He would share. It is like taking your goat and asking the person who is going to decide the price of the goat, the owner of the goat. So, why we need that the owner of the goat, the sugar, to speak in Lubao market is because if he keeps quiet, 12,000 shillings can be sold for as little as 2,000. So this law, again, Chairman, I congratulate you. You've done Article 59. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the new investor in Mumias. He has changed the shame on criminals to ban the nuclear can. And we are going to come for you. Mumias Sugar close. I thank you and I support.
The Honorable Senator Koiti Andrew Mtata.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you for the opportunity to address this August House on this very I agree with the Honorable Senator Khalwale that bill should because one of the most important is to disengage from AFA so that we can on matters sugar without being disrupted from other crops, equally important. We shall be living up to the max, quite small and chew finely to our. Alpha was a messy. It was too obese. Anything good for us. I thank the committee who found it appropriate to conduct public participation where we mobilized farmers from the county stakeholders across the region, participate and make contributions about the bill. However, much as we want to pass this, I have some reservations in ownership of Ken. Tenant farming, whereby farmers become tenants on their own land, as millers own the sugar on land. We need to interrogate that issue and see what to ensure that a farmer is not reduced to a tenant of, and maybe require a deliberate move towards farmers' cooperatives in the sugar industry, so that, and whatever support government wish to give, reach the farmers and not through the question of autogrow is a no-go area. They demonstrate, and there were avenues for corruption or exploitation of the farmer. Most of them were used to steal money from the same farmers, and they mostly became agents of the miller. I would love a situation whereby the farmer grows the cane, they organize themselves into groups, they grow the cane, they own the cane, and when the cane is mature, negotiate with the miller to say, you have got this much cane, are you willing to pay us? Or remove? The idea of government support through the millers tends to tenants on their own land is unacceptable. So, the bill is not very strong on the demand that factories and begin producing more than just sugar from the raw product called sugar. There's need for millers to invest in modern technology. Of course, they are making profits right now because they are farmer for the entire value of the sugar cane. They are compelled to pay the farmer the value of the sugar cane, would close shop. So, I would also like to say that will push towards modernization of the sugar industry, also targeting the miller, so that the miller should pay the farmer for the array of products that are possible and have been achieved in other parts where we always compare ourselves to and wonder why unproductive. Also, I fully agree with Senator Khalwale said that harvesting immature cane should be punished. Beyond that, what is mature cane? Is it cane that is 15 months old, 15 months old, or 20 months old? Done by the millers in this country, which demonstrate that the option in this country is 20 months. Because the last 4 months to grow almost at the age of about 16 months. It also rises, and it's a win-win situation and the farmer. So, clearly defined in terms of sucrose content, value of the cane, at what stage that the cane should not be abstract, that is what you see, what the eye sees. Immature cane should through measures measuring. The other thing that is this is a global issue in terms of agriculture in this country areas. The question of inputs. Cartels have infiltrated inputs. Having a discussion with my good friend, and Arab Menjo was walking me through agricultural, whatever it's called, Kenya farmers, it was called what? Thing. Yeah. Arab Menjo told me that in the colonial times, the government had organized, or the colonizers had organized themselves in such a way that controlled the production of seed through the what is now the ADC. They control and they made sure that the seed was the correct quality. So whatever things that you are going to grow was the correct quality that you are going to farm. Arab Menjo also informed me that I've forgotten the name of this Kenya Farmers. It was called Kenya Farmers Cooperative. They could purchase farmers, first of all, in bulk to ensure that the lowered, and then they could also ensure the quality of the inputs, so that here, where anybody can import fertilizer today, could not have, the farmers controlled it. And then they controlled and whatever in conformation with other players on the market, so that the farmers were never at the mercy of cartels. But when the AFC was Kenya Farmers Cooperative was destroyed. KFC was. Thank you for the information. The great from my neighboring county about court rather. So an arrangement needs to be made so that we can protect the farm players in the production of seed, production of other inputs. We should be thinking of these vast ADC lands, application centers for quality seed. Because if you industry is utilized, sugar can of a certain age, they give the next farmer to grow and they propagate it that way. The seed, so that we know to what number or what number of ratoons can still be used as a seed. But I was feeling that the vast ADC lands, especially if you can control them, can be put to good use as for working in partnership with the centers to provide us with quality seed. So, those things looked is the environmental damage that sugarcane causes. Sugarcane farming is very, very. It takes a lot of chemicals, it takes a lot of all those things. And a lot of our water masses have been natural. Like Lake Victoria now, due to the farming, is virtually a dying lake. And the soils within the sugar, most of the soils have become too acidic. So there should also be a way, especially to control the growing of. Our swamps have all been drained. We have swamps. In my own village, we used to have a beautiful swamp called Kakolite. The home of. This is an area where fish used to breed a lot and then the fish would go down the drains. These swamps have been drained. There are now sugarcane plantations. No wonder there's no fish in Lake Victoria. Factors. So we must also come up with a method and to mitigate that sugarcane farming is causing. Otherwise, what is akin to cutting down Kakamega forest, led by creating temporary jobs by those who will be cutting and exporting the timber out and reflecting growth in our GDP, then and ravagers will begin wondering what hit us. Embrace sugarcane farming and ensure that it's friendly. In fact, the word of could even be misplaced. I'm a person that believe in the word ecosystem, because environment has this thing about it that takes you out of the ecosystem, the ecosystem, so that it's an environment and exploit. We must create a sugar that is sustainable in the sugar farming areas. Now, on the composition of the board, notice that we still have the question of representatives. If the defunct Kenya Sugar Board is anything to go by, the farmers lacked capacity and become directors on the board. So at the end of the day, by the millers, representatives of farmers on the board, and all they did was the farmers bidding. The composition of the board, and how do we in such a way that millers do not sponsor their puppets. The board makes are just miller friendly, farmer friendly. That the bill roll by the county governments. That provision that the county governments will come up, government or a cluster of governments within a cluster, come up with the regulations or the implementation of this act. For me, it's very, very important. And so we must empower our counties on that mandate. Otherwise, it will just be wishful thinking. Mandate that requires a lot of input. And so we must find our counties. The question of Kera being given less, Kera is devolved. Kera is the same as Kura is. So we cannot give them money. They need to be put under the Council of Governors. That when they execute their role of doing rural roads, they are doing it under the supervision of the. And we only leave Kenya to execute national highways. So with those few remarks, Honorable, I unreservedly support the creation of where a group of factories is surrounded. The region is given exclusive mandate within the region. Within the region, within that cluster, and to choose within the cluster. So I think this is a very well. In its essence, it's faultless. Doing the muscles and whatever on the skeleton is faultless. Doing enough muscles, let us then find a way to ensure we come up with a body that will serve the Republic of Kenya to become the dominant and preeminent producer of sugar on the continent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I support.
Senator Veronica.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for the opportunity to debate the bill that is before on the floor of this House. Mr. Speaker, at the very onset, this is a yesterday or many years ago. Too late, but thank God the bill is finally here. Mr. Speaker, sir, if there is a sector that cartels, a sector where affected by brokers, Mr. Speaker, where manipulated, it's the sugar sector. Definitely, those who tend to suffer most, Mr. Speaker, peasant farmers and the many held the sugar industry, in spite of the fact that or the sugar sector has been in tears, Mr. If there is one sector that has been unprecedented and subject to very, don't even know what to call the kind of regulation and legislation that is the sugar sector, Mr. Speaker, sir, because it's a find either sugar from other regions has been opened doors for, Mr. Speaker, even through back door, just manipulating the market, certain individuals to earn from the sugar. This is sector, Mr. Speaker, sir. That is why this too is a very good idea to happen, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I want to congratulate on the proposal of this bill, our senator found it fit, Mr. Speaker, sir, to bring out a legislation well thought out and very comprehensive, Mr. Speaker, sir. Of this bill has finally introduced facilitating a board that is supposed to facilitate access to benefits and resources of Mr. Speaker, sir. That means appreciate the fact that there has been inequity in the Mr. Speaker, sir. We have watched on TV farmers in the western region have been left with cane, or have taken canes to factories or mills that, and those farmers have not been paid. This bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, can introduce a clause such farmers could be indemnified, Mr. Speaker, sir. Especially known to have invested so much distortion in the market, in the sugar market, Mr. Speaker, sir. Losses, and some might never even be able to the collapse that they have seen, Mr. Speaker, sir. That the bill proposes that the CEO must be a graduate, a holder of some credentials, Mr. Speaker, sir, because looking at the kind of a board the CEO will be working with, Mr. Speaker, sir, it then means that they need to be qualified in a certain speciality within the sugar sector, Mr. Speaker, sir, and will bring some value to the table, value proposition to the table. Mr. Speaker, sir, when I look at the functions of this board, what the board is entrusted to do, they are comprehensive and very exhaustive. It does not only deal with issues that affect sugar locally, the bill is also dealing with issues that will affect sugar that is being imported from other regions like Comesa. Mr. Speaker, sir, we already are aware that in Kenya, we have seen issues of sugar being imported, substandard sugar being imported, and the sugar being given to the common mwananchi to consume a product that does not meet the standard. This bill then introduces the standardization, Mr. Speaker, sir, and offers the legislation that is required, the infrastructure, the legal infrastructure that is required, Mr. Speaker, sir, to ensure that any sugar that is intended for consumption has met the expected standards, Mr. Speaker, sir. That is why, Mr. Speaker, sir, I support this bill. However, I have noted section 22, which gives the licensing of the mills, Mr. Speaker, sir, would be issued by the board and would expire on the 30th of June. I do not know why the drafter of this bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, thought of matching the license year to the financial year that is normally undertaken by the government, because Section 22 provides that a license issued under this act shall be subject to such conditions as the board may determine and as prescribed in regulation, and each license shall, unless otherwise revoked, expire on the 30th June next following the date of issue. I do not know why we would have it, the license expire on 30th June. There is no connection between the license and the financial year, Mr. Speaker, sir. So my proposal would be to Senator Osotsi, or the chair of this committee, Mr. Speaker, sir, to consider making the expiry of this license to be 31st of December on every consecutive year, Mr. Speaker, sir, because then it does not need to align with the financial year, and most of the licenses, you will notice, are issued on annual basis, and the year runs from 1st of January to 31st of December. But that is a correction that can be done, because putting it in the middle of the year is disruptive to the farmers, is disruptive to the factory itself. And supposing it is not granted and we're in the middle of a season, Mr. Speaker, sir, it would defeat purpose, Mr. Speaker, sir. The bill is comprehensive. It constitutes provisions for a tribunal. It constitutes segmentation of different sugar catchment areas, Mr. Speaker, sir, in the first schedule of this bill. So I find as though this is a very organized legal bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, that is going to push the sector into some form of organization, especially considering the kind of chaos that this sector has seen in the last few years in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, sir, I therefore stand to support the making of this bill or the passing of this bill into law and congratulate the proposer of this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Omatinga Wahome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Let me start by saying also that I sit in the Agricultural Committee, and I'll start by commending the committee for the effort that they've put into this particular bill. Having gone a couple of times over the weekend throughout working Sundays to Mondays, Mr. Speaker, sir, this is indeed a clear indication that the committee is dedicated to seeing that and ensuring that legal frameworks are put in place that will ensure that the farmers of this country will no longer suffer from the predicament that they've been suffering from. Mr. Speaker, sir, it has been said, and rightfully so, by many senators who contributed to this debate. Farmers in Kenya, be it sugarcane, be it coffee, be it tea, be it macadamia, be it avocado, have always been taken advantage of by middlemen because of lack of sound legal framework that would protect them. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is indeed unfortunate that most of our farmers who have worked so hard to put a straight meal on the table have ended up being exploited. This bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, is a perfect indication that indeed with good legal framework, farmers can be protected, farmers can be assisted, and most important to Mr. Speaker, the bill ensures that the money, the levies and the revenue and the sales that's collected, it does not only go into repairing of roads, but also research is given its rightful place in the industry. Mr. Speaker, sir, we know that after the colonial era, there were sound research institutions in Kenya that saw many sectors perform very well. But as we progressed and corruption became a part of our society, people were taken advantage of. Farming was reduced. The brokers living in big cities took advantage of the poor farmers. Most of them, their yield, their work, their inputs, they ended up paying for loans that they never took. They ended up paying for inputs and fertilizers and other pesticides and the like that they never used. Why, Mr. Speaker, sir? Because there was a lack of a framework that would govern how that is administered. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, sir, moving forward, and now that we are enjoying the most political goodwill from none other than the President of this country, to ensure that the farmers are given their rightful dividends, to ensure that we put in place sound mechanisms anchored in law that can be enforced to make sure that farmers get their rightful dues. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is indeed very impressive when you listen to the President address each and every gathering, telling them that, yes, we can feed this nation. Mr. Speaker, sir, this has for the last 60 years dodged us. But now, with the light political leadership, under his leadership, the leadership of His Excellency Dr. William Samoei Ruto, we know that we can indeed deliver our farmers from the bondage of the blockers. We know that we can ensure that they get the rightful income from their hard work. We know that farming and agro-business is going to be even more attractive to even the young Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, sir, that is why I would want to commend the Committee in Agriculture, led by my able chair, Senator for Murang'a, Senator Murango, who has ably steered the committee into formulating into public participation of various bills. Cotton, Mr. Speaker, sir, coffee, Mr. Speaker, sir, tea, we have seen macadamia, avocado is on the way, and most importantly, to put in place sound legal framework that will ensure that farmers do not only get their rightful dues, but they are also encouraged, and that the government puts the right infrastructure and mechanisms in place to ensure that farmers are no longer conned of their hard work. Mr. Speaker, sir, this house, being a house of promoters and protectors of devolution, the committee has seen into it, Mr. Speaker, that the role of the county government has not been marginalized, but it is left at the center, because we know that agriculture is a devolved function, and with the spirit that has the President gave on his inauguration speech, ensuring that functions are unbundled and they are followed by the budget, we want to see, and this bill ensures that the functions and of management of sugar, like many other crops that have come before the Agriculture Committee, is a central, that the county government becomes a central player. Why is this important, Mr. Speaker, sir? We know that Kenya has been facing the problem of rural-urban migration. The only way to ensure that the rural population, especially the younger generation, can be and can get into meaningful generation of income is to make farming attractive. And how can we make that attractive, Mr. Speaker, sir? One, we must have the legal framework in place. Two, we must have the right policies in place. But most importantly, Mr. Speaker, sir, the political goodwill to ensure and to attract, to create incentives to the younger generation so that they can pick up farming is very, very important. It is therefore imperative, Mr. Speaker, sir, that we put legal mechanisms in place that will ensure every farmer who plants a seed will also harvest and reap the benefits of that seed. Mr. Speaker, sir, that has remained dodgy in many sectors, and I'm therefore very, very happy that this bill seeks to address the issues that have been very dodgy. We know sugar industry, for all the long reasons, Mr. Speaker, sir, be it poisoned sugar that is unfit for human consumption, be it sugarcane that does not meet the quality, be it sugarcane that has been delivered and never been paid for. Mr. Speaker, sir, with the introduction of this new bill and the amendments that have been introduced before this committee, by this committee, these issues are going to be addressed. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm very delighted, I'm a very delighted Kenyan to see that today, what has not been possible for the last 60 years, within 1.5 years of us sitting in this committee, within the first 1.5 years of this Kenya Kwanza government, the plan that we promised the farmers in this country is being realized. We see, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the government has been able to subsidize fertilizer. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, these are some of the benefits that must trickle down to all the farmers. But that have not been possible because of the governance and accountability issues, because of lack of well-defined legal framework. Mr. Speaker, sir, with this bill, with passage of this bill, we will ensure that what the government subsidizes indeed gets to the farmer. And Mr. Speaker, sir, it would be unfair not to say that the government committed itself to all the debts that were owed to the sugarcane, and it is in the process of doing the same for the coffee farmers. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, moving forward, we must ensure that the legal framework that is in place will ensure that the farmers are not siphoned of their money, because it cannot be the business of government for some people to enrich themselves only for the government to come and bail the farmers out. Having a clear slate, clear starting slate, Mr. Speaker, sir, will ensure that the farmers of this country, they do not only enjoy their sweat, but they are also protected by the government. And that, Mr. Speaker, sir, can only be done when that is anchored in a live living document like the envisaged in this bill. There is, however, some few things, Mr. Speaker, sir, that needs to be adjusted as we move by, that needs to be amended. But having said that, Mr. Speaker, it is also important to say that law in itself is not static. It is a flexible document that will be, as time changes, some of the clauses will need to be modified so that as we build capacity more and more at the grassroots level, we will ensure that we also put in place regulations. We'll also operationalize the law in terms of making sure that some of the clauses that are not quite practical can be amended. Mr. Speaker, sir, the introduction of sectors and zones in the sugar growing sector, it is a welcome move, because it is not only going to be good for elections, but also for the millers to also be able to create incentives so that they can get outgrowers, they can get farmers who will be prepared to sell sugarcane to them. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would also want to point out that in all other farming sectors, Mr. Speaker, sir, I know, because I sit in this committee, that we are preparing ourselves so that by the time we are done with our term in this Senate, the history of this country, the history of agriculture, and what the problems that have confronted agriculture in this country will never be the same again. We want, Mr. Speaker, sir, and that is a commitment from our chairman, Senator Murango, that nobody again will in this country stand up and use agricultural sector as a campaign tool, because we are going to do what it takes to ensure that what has been promised for the last 60 years is implemented.
The reason why is that is possible, Mr. Speaker, sir, it's because we have a government that is coming with a lot of political goodwill to ensure that we deliver the farmers of this country from the yoke and the bondage that they've been suffering from people who have been acting as the brokers and as the go-between, people who've been acting as the marketers. And I want to say that with the commitment of this committee and the political goodwill from the national government and the fulfillment of the plan, yes, we will deliver the Kenyan farmers from the bondage of brokerage and from the bondage of the oppressors, because we want to change this country once and for all. Mr. Speaker, sir, I support.
Senator Mutinda Tabitha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do rise to really applaud this committee and also the member from National Assembly and our member, Senator Wakoli, who has also picked it up, and the positive energy that we've seen from all the members led by none other than the chair, Senator Murango, on the effort that they've put on this bill. We say God's timing is the best. The bill is here now, so we execute it. And my first input, Mr. Speaker, is on the definition of the sugar catchment area. Mr. Speaker, in it, you realize that it's an area where farmers are clustered within a suitable sugar catchment area for purposes of election, Mr. Speaker, to the board. Now, Mr. Speaker, you realize that if it's only for the purposes of the election, the catchment area, then it leaves a very key important point that the committee should be able to note, and that is the point of cane management. It is very important that even as far as the consideration of the catchment area is concerned, it's not only for the purposes of election, but also for ensuring that cane management is put as a key priority so that farmers can be able to ensure they benefit from the levies that will be put in place, Mr. Speaker. I've seen in regards the board shall focus on activities that will be able to add value. Also on the issue of the export and local or domestic market locally, which is very important. Mr. Speaker, I have noted on point 5B, and I'm very happy for it because it talks about the extension services. I have my bill, which is already at the National Assembly, and I'm very happy to see that even services of extension services like extension services for the farmers, then the board adheres to these services, because it is through these services and through these officers that should be put within the county, different offices of the county, will ensure the research that is going to be done as per the bill stipulates. The research, Sugar Research and Training Institute, it's very key, Mr. Speaker. Proper research, proper investments on good research institutes are going to ensure that the yields will be maximum. The quality will be, of course, very high. And this is a benefit both to the farmers and both to the market level itself. So research is very key, and I'm happy to see the extension services in it. Mr. Speaker, I've noticed clause 6, the board shall comprise of. I look at the total number in place, the number is 9. It talks about 5 representatives elected by the growers, 2 representatives elected by the private, principal secretary from the ministry, and all that, Mr. Speaker. I've looked at other bills, and when it comes to the composition of board members, the gender issue is very important. PWD is also very important. It is in my proposal that the committee should think in terms of this clause to be able to, apart from the 9 members, to add like 2 other members, for example, so that after elections, because at the election point, you cannot probably be able to determine either it's going to be this gender or this particular gender, but now any additional will be able to give an opportunity for the members who are less in terms of gender to be able to add an increase. And this takes care of both genders. If women are more, then men cannot get an opportunity to have an additional person to the board. If men are more, women will be able to have an opportunity to add 1 more person. And in that regard, also the opportunity for people with disability who need also to be part of this representation of the board will have an opportunity as far as that additional number is concerned. And it will be wise and positive that the committee ensures during the amendment they can be able to consider that fact so that everyone is well represented in it. Mr. Speaker, on part 6.3, I note that the board of directors, unless a person holds at least a degree or is equivalent in any discipline from any institution. Mr. Speaker, I've always disagreed with this fact very much. You find that people are seconded to different institutions, to different levels of their work mandate. But then I always ask the question, if we've had qualified students from our great learning institutions who have taken their time and identified their line of discipline of education that they are going to study, case example, agricultural field, then why is it, this being an agricultural area, that we should open up and say a degree or its equivalent in any discipline? So does it mean even someone who has done psychology is qualified? I'm not demeaning, but of course it's a very, completely very different field from the agricultural field. What about the students, the personnel who have taken their time and narrowed their education career to matters agriculture? And so it would be wise through the chair and the committee to give consideration, priority to degrees and degrees as far as the agricultural field is concerned. Of course, from a Kenyan recognized institution, there is no problem with that, but it should be much more specific so that our students who are out there, they have taken their time and narrowed into the agricultural field, they'll be able to have an opportunity and fit in this particular board membership. They will definitely, out of their knowledge, out of their experience, their skills, they'll be able to, of course, add much more input, putting in mind where we are coming from or where we are as far as the sugar issue is concerned, Mr. Speaker. I've noted number 9A, Mr. Speaker, impose a levy or levies upon growers and millers for the purposes of giving effect to the provisions of this act. Mr. Speaker, this issue of levies, of course, quite sensitive, but as far as I've looked at this bill, the levies will be able to take care of different issues as far as the development of infrastructure is concerned. The research institute funds, administration funds are also needed. But it would be my advice to the committee through the chair to consider a single-digit levy, as we've done with the housing levy, when it comes to the housing fund, mortgage fund. It's a single digit. So it will be wise, Mr. Chair, Senator Murango, if you would consider a single digit as far as the levies are concerned, so that it doesn't also so much press on the farmers as this board is put in place. The other issue, Mr. Speaker, is on clause 20, licensing and registration. A person shall not operate unless the board, upon recommendation by relevant county government for that purpose. It should be much more specific to the CEC agriculture at the county level. And further to that, for this license to be issued, the bill should be able also to guide in terms of the timelines that are needed to be able to issue this particular license, and it should be issued by the CC agriculture within a stipulated time. There's no timeline in this. And you know, these are some of the cases whereby farmers sometimes or billers will be able, will complain because you've done your application and the timeline is not specified. And if people have some hidden agendas, they may just delay approving or issuing license to you because there's no timeline. And then that affects a lot of things, Mr. Speaker. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, of course, on the 28, talks about the breed and promote sugar cane varieties. It's very key so that these institutes can be able to offer the highest quality of seedlings as far as the sugar cane the cane is concerned. Sorry. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, it's on the issue of the sugar development levy, and more specific D, which talks about 15% shall be applied for infrastructural development and maintenance and shall be managed by KERA. We know very well, Mr. Speaker, that KENHA takes care of the highway roads. KURA takes care of the urban roads, and KERA takes care of the rural roads. But Mr. Speaker, it shall be managed by a carer of the catchment area. Mr. Speaker, I do tend to disagree that these monies should be given to carer, or these infrastructures should be developed by carer. Carer is a national level body. And it is at this point that you realize these levies are collected at the county level. So why is it that we want to collect monies at the county level and remit those monies to the national level? We will not then be supporting devolution. The amendment that the committee should look at is to mention that these monies that have been collected for development of the catchment areas, and remember, these are catchment areas that go where the farmers are. And so it would be prudent to say, through, of course, the Committee of Finance, this should come as a conditional grant. These monies be added to the counties. Conditional grant. This money should be added through the county so that the counties themselves are able to develop these particular infrastructures for the benefit of these farmers with these different counties. But Mr. Speaker, if you start giving this money back to carer, then we will not be adhering to what the Constitution allows us to adhere to. So with those few and many, I do support and congratulate the Committee of Finance for really taking it with the weight that it deserves. Thank you.
Honorable members, there being no other senator who wishes to contribute to this bill, Senator Murango, the chair indeed confirmed that you contributed yesterday to this bill when you were tabling your report, and therefore you are not eligible to still speak to it. And so you resume your seat. I'll call upon the mover to reply to this bill. Proceed, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd wish to thank all our colleagues for taking time to speak to this very important bill. When I made my contribution yesterday, I did indeed note that this is the neglected sector, a sector of the economy which, if we took time to plan and organize well, as envisioned in the manifesto of the Kenya Kwanza administration, Mr. Speaker, has a potential of saving our country billions of shillings that we use in importing sugar into the country to meet our annual deficit, which is slightly over 1 million tons, or slightly below that, Mr. Speaker. Secondly, it will create employment, Mr. Speaker, by the fact that there are millions of farmers who will benefit and therefore, from an organized sugar sector. Mr. Speaker, it cannot be the case that Brazil, for example, feeds or supplies a quarter of the world's sugar demand. Just one country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it cannot even be, the case cannot be made further worse than the fact that the leading producer of sugar in Africa is Egypt, a country that relies on water that traverses right through the sugar belt regions of our country, from River Nzoia, River Sondu, and all these rivers that wash down the stream towards the River Nile, Mr. Speaker. And they are able to put it to prudent use and grow good cane, Mr. Speaker, which they sell to the rest of Africa. It's embarrassing, Mr. Speaker, and I'm glad that finally we are getting it right in organizing this sector to ensure that we have a sector that works for our farmers, Mr. Speaker, and works for the country as well. Mr. Speaker, it is possible, and I know for a fact because I understand the sugar industry very well, Mr. Speaker, that upon the passage of this bill and with good follow-up, Mr. Speaker, of all the proposals that are in this bill, in about 1 to 2 years' time, Mr. Speaker, 3 at most, Kenya can actually be an exporter of sugar to the rest of the COMESA region and even global supply chains, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank our colleagues who have taken time to contribute and raise very important points on this particular issue and their proposals of how they want the sector to be better organized, Mr. Speaker. I have taken keen interest with colleagues who, in the breakdown of the sugar levy, Mr. Speaker, are concerned that if you send this money back to Kera, what is the assurance, Mr. Speaker, that the same shall be used to maintain some of our roads? There are good arguments on over and above. For example, if I take the county of Kericho and the sugar factories that are close by, which is West Valley Sugar and Moroni Sugar, Mr. Speaker, that they are supplied mainly by a road network that comprises of both county and national government, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, there needs to be a balance. We need to strike, and I have engaged Senator Murango, the chair of the committee, that when we get to the third reading, perhaps we can break this down further, Mr. Speaker, so that there is a share of that allocation which CARA, and those funds must be ring-fenced, Mr. Speaker, to maintain actually the roads that lead to these sugar factories, Mr. Speaker. If this fund was already operational in that nature, the Kipsitet-Moroni junction between Kericho and Kisumu counties, Mr. Speaker, will not be in the kind of state that it is in today, Mr. Speaker. That is a very important link road that supports the sugar subsector in those two counties, Mr. Speaker, but it is in an extremely deplorable state. Yet, Mr. Speaker, the county governments must equally maintain the feeder roads within the counties. Therefore, that is a conversation that we may want to have. In fact, Senator Murango, I want to give you a better idea. I had told you that many of these sugarcane farm organizations, 5% is such a huge figure to give them from this sugar development levy. Perhaps part of that fund, because it will be put to better use if farmers can access the factories more faster, you can slash it and maintain it at either 1% or even put it as 30 figure of 100 million shillings, because there is nothing more than advocacy that these farm organizations do. The rest of the important duties, Mr. Speaker, have been set out from research and maintaining roads and price stabilization, running sugar directorate, sugar board, Mr. Speaker, is already broken down. Therefore, when we get to the committee of the whole, we'll be relying on the wisdom of the Agriculture Committee. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, with those very many remarks, I beg to reply. And further to that, Mr. Speaker, in accordance to Standing Order number 66.3, I want to request that you defer the putting of the question to a later date in which the Speaker you shall nominate. I thank you.
Subsequent to the request by the Leader of Majority, the mover of this bill, the division and voting on this is deferred to the next sitting of the House, pursuant to Standing Order 66.3. Clerk, let's move to the next order.
Order number 11, the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bills number 12 of 2023, second reading.
Senate Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023, be now read a second time. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023, was published by the Kenya Gazette number 41 of 2023. This bill was considered by our colleagues in the National Assembly, and sometimes in the month of November last year, they passed and they referred it to Senate for consideration. At the time of referring this bill, we had just broken on recess. Mr. Speaker, and having come back, I feel that it is time that we consider. This is an extremely important bill, Mr. Speaker. There is no hiding that corruption is a national shame, Mr. Speaker, and that one of the avenues that have been identified as the enablers of corruption in this country is this animal called the conflict of interest, Mr. Speaker, where public officials and state officers take advantage of their position, Mr. Speaker, to enhance their own personal interest as opposed to public interest, Mr. Speaker. And if we don't curb this vice, Mr. Speaker, I'm afraid we may not have a country to write about in the next few years to come. And therefore, I want to urge colleagues that we take time, listen and debate this particular bill with all the energy and vigor that they can summon, Mr. Speaker, because if you live in a country, Mr. Speaker, where industry pays less than its politics, then you know that there is a problem, Mr. Speaker. Where industrialists, Mr. Speaker, are poorer than members of the political class, because, say, for example, those in the political class and those within the realms of government, Mr. Speaker, are able to flex their policy-making decision and powers, Mr. Speaker, to the advantage of their own interests, Mr. Speaker, against the public good, then you find yourself in a very difficult situation. And this has been one of the greatest inhibitors of growth in our country, and why our country for so long, a country that is blessed with so much potential, Mr. Speaker, cannot take off and join the middle income economies, Mr. Speaker, and be a country, Mr. Speaker, that many people can look up to. Yet everybody appreciates that we have a well-educated workforce, Mr. Speaker, that our human capital is the envy of the world, that Kenyans, when granted an opportunity, Mr. Speaker, they thrive and they excel. But because of issues such as what we are confronting in this particular bill, Mr. Speaker, we are unable, Mr. Speaker, to get to the next level. And therefore, until we all summon our collective strength and conscience, Mr. Speaker, to believe that there is a greater sense of moral good, Mr. Speaker, when the country thrives even better than you as an individual, Mr. Speaker, that when you're granted the opportunity to serve in a public office, be it as an elected official or a public servant, Mr. Speaker, that you must remember that it is that poor young man in the village, that poor old lady that walks perhaps barefoot, that has granted you the opportunity to use that office to make their life better, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I am particularly impressed that this bill provides that opportunity for us to be able to move in that particular direction. I'll quickly move to the various sections of the bill. Mr. Speaker, you know Article 73(2) of our Constitution provides the guiding principles of leadership and integrity, Mr. Speaker. And further, Article 75 requires a state officer to behave, whether in public and official life, or sometimes even in private, Mr. Speaker, and in association with other persons, in a manner that avoids conflict of interest between that personal interest and their official duties, which may end up compromising your official interest in favor of personal interest, Mr. Speaker, which is a point that I have just taken time to explain, that many countries, Mr. Speaker, that have been firm and fluid, Mr. Speaker, and fluent on matters corruption and slaying the dragons of conflict of interest, Mr. Speaker, have succeeded and have excelled. When people know that public office is only accessed with the sense and the desire to serve the public, Mr. Speaker, those countries have moved ahead and thrived, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, that has not been our story, and we must be the generation, and we must be the parliament, Mr. Speaker, that eventually turns this around, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Clause 1 to Clause 4 of the bill provides for preliminary matters. I'll not take a lot of time looking into it. Part 3 of the bill, Mr. Speaker, which consists of Clause 8 to 29, they define the various situations that amount to conflict of interest and imposes obligations to public officers to either avoid, Mr. Speaker, situations that will result in conflict of interest, or prohibits even them from engaging in activities that will make you or put you in a situation where private interest, Mr. Speaker, is on a collision course with public interest, Mr. Speaker. All those are defined in these clauses 8 to 29, so that a public official will not come back and say, oh, I didn't know that this was wrong, including us, by the way, as members of parliament. As you debate a particular bill, a particular motion, Mr. Speaker, you are duty-bound on account of this law, Mr. Speaker, to make declaration of interest. Even the same is provided in our standing orders. But now this will be provided in statute, Mr. Speaker, to say that on this particular matter, I am afraid, Mr. Speaker, I may not provide the best of judgment because I know this particular client or this particular company, I do business with them, and so on and so forth, Mr. Speaker, so that the Speaker can determine that already, as a human being, you're biased, Mr. Speaker. It is impossible to divide yourself into two. So long as you're into either business or private or whatever sort of relationship with an entity or an individual that is before this House, Mr. Speaker, the same actually applies. And therefore, all those offenses are listed. Part 4 of the bill, Mr. Speaker, which is clause 30 to 38, provides for compliance measures. It tells you this is what you need to do, Mr. Speaker, because you're duty-bound. That situations will arise, Mr. Speaker, where when you're serving in a public office, Mr. Speaker, something comes across, an advocate of the High Court like you, Mr. Speaker, that it is possible that at one time you have represented a particular entity which becomes subject to investigations in the Senate, Mr. Speaker. It is provided in clause 30 to 38 on what are the compliance measures that you're supposed to take, Mr. Speaker, as a public officer where private interest has been in conflict, and what you're supposed to do which include either you recuse yourself, you declare the income and assets and liabilities by public officers and your diversions thereon. Part 4 of the bill, Mr. Speaker, part 5 rather, sorry, which provides, which comprises of clause 39 to 42, provides for the lodging of complaints against the conduct and investigation. It sets out the procedure for reporting any violation of this act to the Commission and to the reporting entities. It provides temporary vacation of office by public officers who are under investigation and stipulates the recommendation that may be made by the Commission to a reporting entity upon the conclusion. This is where the rubber meets the road. Once it has been declared, Mr. Speaker, that there is possible conflict of interest, that you didn't act in a manner that is in the best interest of the public, Mr. Speaker, on what is supposed to happen, and therefore EACC or whatever investigative entities, Mr. Speaker, are to do with you. Part 6 of the bill, which is for clause 43 to 48, are just miscellaneous provisions, which provides for the penalty, issues like filing of returns, and the power of AG to make regulations and repeal the Public Officers Ethics Act. Finally, Mr. Speaker, on part 7 of the bill, which is 49 to 51, it's the saving and transitional clauses, which provides for the Public Officers Ethics Act, Mr. Speaker, and the Leadership and Integrity Act, many of the clauses which are being succeeded by this particular act, Mr. Speaker. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge senators to take time, read this particular bill, debate it, provide insight into it, how to make it better. Of course, given that you have personal interest in this particular matter, Mr. Speaker, because it affects us, Mr. Speaker, it is important that you also speak about it and share ways in which the bill can be made better. I'm sure when finally, Mr. Speaker, tomorrow, the report by Justice and Legal Affairs Committee is tabled, Mr. Speaker, on this particular bill and what clauses you want us to make better, it will even be for the good of the country. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and request the Senator for Kakamega, our majority whip, Senator Dr. Boni Halwale, to second. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Boni Halwale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second this motion, and I'll be very brief. I rise to second this bill. The bill on the conflict of interest, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023. Mr. Speaker, I'll be very brief. I second the bill as moved. But I want to take this House down memory lane. This is not the first time that the matter of conflict of interest is becoming before this Parliament. In 1971, after the death of Tom Mboya, Professor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o writes in his book that he went to Singapore and asked the leadership why Kenya was lagging behind Kenya and Uganda when actually we had started off on the same footing like Singapore. And the president told them very quickly that we chose the path of prosperity while you chose to kill Mboya. Mr. Speaker, Mboya was very clear in his mind that it is an open secret that proximity to government, and especially high office in Parliament, is a way to create great wealth. And Mr. Speaker, with this realization, Mboya went and President Kenyatta formed the Ndegwa Commission. Mr. Speaker, Ndegwa was then the chairman of the Central Bank of Kenya, a highly respected banker. And Ndegwa, upon interviewing many parastatals including NSSF, NHIF, name it, Ndegwa then allowed public servants to own property and participate in business with public entities. And that, Mr. Speaker, is where the rain started beating us. The Ndegwa Commission recommendations allowed civil servants to then participate in doing businesses with public entities. That was the beginning of the real conflict of interest. And the rest, Mr. Speaker, is history. It is not, therefore, a surprise to those who bother to fight for this country that some of the richest families in this country, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, are the same families that have enjoyed the opportunity to lead the country at the highest level. I therefore want to support this bill because it now wants to categorically legislate, Mr. Speaker, on the sensitive issue of public of interest. The object being to provide for management and regulation of conflict of interest in the discharge of official duties. Mr. Speaker, as the mover of the motion has told us, this aims to prevent officials from using positions of power for personal gain. It's very difficult. This is the real meaning of Chapter 6 on integrity and leadership. People in high office dole out special favors to interest groups, to members of their families, to people they share membership to, clubs, to people who are fellow alumni, and in the process, the weak lose out. It played out in this House, Mr. Speaker, 2 weeks ago. When a little boy had to sell his business, 800,000 shillings, in order to access opportunity. This is what this bill is all about, conflict of interest. I therefore join the leader of the majority in urging colleagues, members, that we pass this law so that we move yet again a step closer to realizing the meaning of Chapter 6 of our Constitution on leadership and integrity. I second.
Honorable Senators, I now propose the question that the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bills number 12 of 2023, be now read a second time. I will call upon the Honorable Senators who wishes to contribute to this bill, and I'll start with Senator James Murango.
Asante sana Mstahiki Speaker. Mimi nimesimama siku ya leo kujiunga na kiongozi wa wengi na pia kiranja wa Seneti kuunga mkono mswada ulioko mbele yetu. Na kwa muda mrefu ni kwamba wananchi wengi wamekuwa wakikosa huduma katika ofisi nyingi kwa sababu ya ukosefu wa maadili na pia ufisadi katika ofisi nyingi. Na kwa hivyo sheria kama hii ni muhimu sana kuhakikisha kwamba wanaotafuta huduma katika zile ofisi wanapata huduma bora pasipo ubaguzi, kwa sababu hawajulikani ama hawachukuliwi kama wahusika wakuu katika zile maofisi. Mstahiki Speaker, ofisi nyingi ukienda siku ya leo utapata ya kwamba wenye wanatafuta ajira, wenye wanatafuta kazi lazima wawe na uhusiano fulani na mwenye katika ile ofisi. Kwa hivyo mswada huu na sheria itakayotokea kutoka kwa mswada itakuwa muhimu sana kuhakikisha kwamba maadili inahifadhiwa na watu wanapewa heshima na Wakenya wanapata huduma kwa njia inayofaa. Asante sana Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wamatinga Wahome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I also like to support this bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, abuse of office, corruption, favoritism, nepotism has been some of the key breakers of this economy and this country. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, sir, this bill seeks to cure such leakages that have brought our country to where we are today. Mr. Speaker, sir, with this bill, we will ensure that every Kenyan, as has been envisaged, has and stands equal opportunities to get the position to access opportunities that are open for every Kenyan. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to support. Thank you.
Senator James Murangwa.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to bring to attention that we don't have a sufficient quorum in this house to continue the business.
Sergeant at Arms, could you please ring the quorum bell for 5 minutes?
The quorum bell is currently on at the Senate. A quorum bell given 5 minutes to allow senators to get back into the chamber this afternoon. Before the commencement of that directive by the Speaker, who is Wakili Hilary Sigei, a member of the Speaker's panel, the House was debating the conflict of interest bill. This is a bill set to streamline matters to do with Chapter 6 of the Constitution on matters leadership and integrity. It is a bill that has also been considered by the Senate Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. This particular legislation aims at having an overhaul of Kenya's approach to matters potential conflict of interest within the public service. replacing Matters to Do with Public Officers Ethics Act of 2003, and provide a robust guideline for managing situations where private interests intersect with the public duty. In a nutshell, this is a bill that seeks to streamline matters to do with leadership and integrity, especially bearing in mind public officers who are holding public offices and get entrenched in cases of public interest. The key provisions include a clear definition of the conflict of interest, identifying where private interests could influence or hinder the impartial exercise of public duty. This bill on matters public interest seeks to introduce strong restrictions prohibiting public officers from giving preferential treatment, exploiting insider knowledge for personal gains, influencing decisions for their benefit, as well as taking certain forms outside employment and accepting gifts that could create conflicts. This is a bill that has received massive support from senators who, in their contributions, say some public officials have been using dubious methods to gain selfishly in matters to do with various businesses across the country, and especially the 47 county governments. The bill mandates for recusal and matters disclosure, requiring public offices to remove themselves from decisions where their interests could create a conflict and to regularly disclose their income. The public officers are also required to disclose their assets and liabilities. And additionally, the bill will be empowering the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, if approved, to thoroughly investigate alleged violations, including the potential for the suspension of implicated individuals in the investigation. According to the proposals in the bill, stiff penalties, including fines and imprisonment, are to be included for those who breach the act. This bill that seeks to regulate matters to do with public interest, matters to do with conflict of interest when it comes to persons serving in public offices or in civil service rather. This bill will strive to promote ethical decision-making, provide for greater accountability and stronger public confidence in government institutions.
It's 2:30 p.m.